Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg wanting to appear in the Picard show, I guess to reprise her role as Guinan. So first of all, obviously the age thing is a problem because her species was said to be very long-lived. They live for centuries. In one episode she said that her father is 700 years old and in perfect condition, and I don't think we ever got her exact age. But we did see her 500 years before, and she looked exactly the same as she looked on the show. And so that means that she's not aging at the same rate as humans. Maybe they do age. We did see Soran, who was also a member of the same species, and he had gray hair. So obviously they do age, but Guinan, we saw no difference in her age for 500 years. So how can we explain that? Well, I guess we could say that maybe the Guinan we'll see will come from a distant future. Maybe she'll be like a time traveler. Maybe she'll tell him that she did live to the future and then came back from the future, and that's why she's older. Or maybe we can put her in some kind of inhospitable, harsh planet, some kind of desert planet she was stuck on, and that could explain how come her skin aged so badly. And we could also say that maybe her species does age fast in certain periods of their life. So maybe in puberty they do age normally, and that after a certain age they do begin to age at the same rate as normal humans. So maybe she simply reached that stage and so did begin to age like normal humans. Maybe it could also be used to explain Soran, because Soran did look old. And maybe it was one of the reasons he was in such a hurry to get to the Nexus. Maybe because he knew that if he reaches his final life cycle, that maybe he reached the stage of accelerated aging, and so maybe that's why he was such in a hurry to go into the Nexus before he dies. So maybe they can use that kind of excuse, and it will retroactively explain some of the motivations of Soran. Maybe he knew he's about to die soon, and maybe it would be more dramatic in this show if she does appear as Guinan. Maybe she can tell Picard, I'm about to die soon, so I have to tell you a few things. So that might make that whole scene much more dramatic if she does have a cameo. And maybe they can use Guinan to kind of explain some things about the timeline. We know that Guinan is able to sense it when the timeline changes, and it was never fully explained on the show exactly why that is. It was implied that maybe all members of her species have this ability. Data speculated that. I actually think it probably has to do with one of two options, or maybe both. One of them is that she knew how the future should look like because of that whole time loop thing, because she met Picard in the past and maybe he told her about the future. So once she reached that future, if it was different, then she would be able to know that something is wrong. So that's one way to explain that whole thing of her knowing that the timeline changed in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise, that she knew it's supposed to be a ship of peace and not a ship of war. So that's one way to kind of explain some of that. Another way is to say that maybe because part of her is still stuck in the Nexus, maybe it gives her these abilities to see beyond linear time, and the Nexus exists outside of time, so maybe because part of her is still connected to the Nexus, maybe that allows her to see beyond linear time and to see parallel timelines and all of that. And another theory is maybe by tying it with the Q, because there was that time in which she met Q, and Q seemed kind of scared of her, and he wanted to get rid of her, and then she kind of raised her arms in defensive positions. So why would she do that if she knows the Q are all powerful? Maybe she had some kind of powers that might have protected her from Q. So Q did say that they had all kinds of dealings in the past. He said 2 centuries ago. By the way, I think she should have appeared in Enterprise, because that was set 2 centuries before, and maybe she should have made a cameo on that show for one episode, maybe hitch a ride with the Enterprise to get back to her home planet, and maybe meet Q on the way, and maybe to see what exactly happened in their history. That would have been interesting, even though Starfleet is not supposed to know about the Cube. Maybe it could have done it in a way that the characters of Starfleet wouldn't know exactly what happened. So anyway, my speculation is that maybe another member of the Q Continuum gave her some of the Q powers, maybe only the power to defend herself from other Q. So maybe she has like small Q abilities, and maybe that's what allowed her to see beyond linear time and so on. So I could come up with theories like that to try to explain this. By the way, I have no idea if this was ever explained in any kind of Star Trek novel. It's possible this has been addressed. I didn't look it up. I have no idea if it was actually explained, but on screen we don't really know any of what I just mentioned. We only know that she does see alternate timelines. She can sense it when the timeline changes, and she knows what the timeline is supposed to be. So I think if we do see her in this show, it should be in such a scene of her giving an advice to Picard and telling him something about the alternate timelines, if it will be relevant to the plot in some way. Maybe she could tell him about what happened to Spock, that Spock tried to save Romulus from the supernova and failed, and it destroyed Romulus. So if it will be addressed in this show, maybe Picard can talk to Guinan about it, and she can be the one to tell him that Spock traveled back in time and created a parallel timeline, and she can sense that other timeline, something like that. So she can give him some kind of a crucial bit of information that he couldn't have known otherwise, and that will somehow be part of the plot and so on. So if she does appear, I think it should be in a scene like that, some kind of cameo scene, and it should be said that her species do begin to age after a certain point, and she reached that point, and so she doesn't have a lot of time to live. And it can be like a goodbye scene. Maybe she can be like crazy, maybe it can be in a nut house, maybe because she sees all these strange different timelines, maybe it drove her crazy, maybe that's why Picard came to visit her, and maybe that's why she aged so rapidly, because she's in a nut house, she's in a strap jacket, she's kind of behaving crazy, but then when she sees Picard, everything becomes clear, and then she can tell him something about the timelines merging, converging, merging back into one, whatever. We can say something like that, and we can use her as a plot device to explain all that thing with the continuity and the timelines to Picard, and maybe give him some crucial bit of information that will help him somehow. So I think this is the only scenario I can imagine in which it will be kind of interesting. And if she just appears as Guinan and being old without explanation, that will be very annoying. So if she appears, there has to be some kind of explanation for why she suddenly started aging. So let me know what you think in the comments below and we can discuss it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.